This is Dr. Sarah Bowie from the South Carolina Department of Education's Office of Personalized Learning. Welcome to a quick tour of how the South Carolina Teaching Standards 4.0 element, lesson structure and pacing connects to the Measuring PCBL Toolkit. The purpose of this video is to provide a short introduction of how the Measuring PCBL Toolkit outcomes can help measure growth in lesson structure and pacing. If you haven't watched the welcome video in the header of the Crosswalk document that explains our overall purpose, we suggest watching that before you continue with this video. The Measuring PCBL Toolkit focuses on 8 outcomes that we believe are distinctive of a high-quality PCBL system. The toolkit was created to help make measuring PCBL impacts as accessible as possible for classroom teachers, school coaches, leaders, and anyone wanting to document the effects of PCBL practices for learners. Let's dig in and learn more about the connections between lesson structure and pacing and the Measuring PCBL Toolkit outcomes. If you are wanting to measure your impact in lesson structure and pacing, you could use the Measuring PCBL Toolkit outcome of agency. We know that in order to have the capacity to support students at different learning rates, students need to feel as if they have ownership over the learning process, can work on their own, and know how to get help or help themselves when they need it. Now let's look to see how you could use agency to measure impact in the SCTS 4.0 element of lesson structure and pacing. But let's level set for a minute. Why is having agency important? We know that having agency means students can make decisions about what they learn and how they learn it based on their interests and needs. We bet that students having agency and ownership over their learning is one of the top priorities in your context as we prepare students for college and career. The indicators for the SCTS 4.0 rubric element, lesson structure and pacing, and the PCBL outcome agency can work together to support students in collecting valuable data. For example, on the 4.0 rubric, teachers are expected to have a lesson with brisk pacing that provides many opportunities for individual students who progress at different learning rates. The agency data collection tool has survey questions that ask learners about their ability to work independently and at a pace that works best for them as learners. Using the survey questions to find out how well students feel they have time to do their best work on their own and how well they can figure out what to do when the work becomes difficult can be used by teachers to inform and grow their instructional practices in this area. Let's click into the crosswalk to see how we might use the data collection tools in the Measuring PCBL Toolkit. Let's imagine I am a 7th grade math teacher who has chosen to set a goal to work on the SCTS 4.0 rubric element of lesson structure and pacing, because I want to know how well students feel they have opportunities to progress at different learning rates as needed. So I'm going to scroll down to the lesson structure and pacing portion of the crosswalk document and click on agency. I see that there are several prompts and questions I can use to create a survey for my students. I notice that each prompt has a code for which grade level it best fits. Since I'm a middle school teacher, I want to make sure the prompts I select fit where they are as learners. I might pick a prompt that I can use with a Likert scale, like I have clarity about what I need to do in my work, what the criteria for success are, and this helps me work as independently as possible. Or I can work at a pace that works best for me as a learner. Then I might also pick one open-ended question, like, how do you know what to do when you start an assignment? Once I made the survey, I would give it to one or all of my classes, depending on what I was trying to measure. After getting the survey results back, I could analyze the data by myself, with my coach, or with another colleague to see what I notice and wonder about what my students are saying around their level of agency. If I needed to follow up and do some small group interviews, I could. Then I could use the data to make some changes to my instruction based on what my students said. If my SLO was focused on the same 4.0 element, I could even use these prompts as pre and post data related to one of the competencies I might be working to integrate in my class. If you are wondering if you can do this with more than one outcome at a time, the answer is you can. You can use each of these tabs as a menu to pull from if it relates to the SCTS 4.0 element you are trying to measure. Now, what if I'm a school leader or an instructional coach? How can I use this same crosswalk? Well, if your school has identified a few of the SCTS 4.0 elements that are your foci for the year, then you could ask everyone to focus on the same one or give them a choice between a few. Then, as the coach or school leader, you could create a school-wide survey using the prompts and questions from the data collection tool that apply to the SCTS 4.0 elements that are your focus. Have each teacher give the survey to one class during a given class period, and then reflect on that whole school data or individual class data when you all are meeting in your PLCs. Teachers could set their own growth goals around the data from their students. That is one way you can leverage the connection between the SCTS 4.0 rubric element, lesson structure and pacing, and the data collection tools in the Measuring PCBL Toolkit. Now it's your turn to think about which Measuring PCBL Toolkit outcome you want to focus on and explore the survey prompts and questions. Remember, we love to partner with educators, so please, know that you can always reach out to your regional coach by going to personalizesc.ed.sc.gov/contact-us.